Yep. Okay, so recently we did some work on Danny D to turn him into Danny Double D. So we could go ahead and put an RTX 2070 in there with a 5600G. And a few people asked, well, did it do any good? Yeah, does it still work? Is it okay? And so today we're going to talk about that a little bit. No great surprise, maybe a spoiler. Hopefully you guys aren't going to bail right after this, but it worked out okay. So yeah, I will, spoiler alert, it worked out okay. It worked out pretty much like I thought, and it's part of the reason for going to the bigger case, because I wasn't sure, even though I don't really need to use it on more than 1080p for the time being, I really wanted something a little bit better in there in case I was in a situation where I needed to be gaming on, or using it, or being creative, or doing something with OBS, or editing, or whatever, on a larger screen, 1440, or if I was lucky enough to have a 4K monitor or a 4K TV in front of me, then I could use something a little bit bigger with that RTX 2070. Well, that's what I got. And I went ahead and I didn't have any problems setting everything up. And the previous video, or the video about Danny D, you can go back and take a look at that. If I remember, I'll go ahead and tag it. It worked out pretty well. I love the case. That NR200P in Caribbean blue was a really, really nice look, and I'm very happy with it. So there's no issues there. I was able to go through, and this has to be one of the easier builds and easier setups and easier testing sessions I've ever done. And I probably just jinxed myself, because I already know that I'm in the middle of a nightmare trying to get a home server figured out and started, just because I've got hard drives that have stuff from, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years ago that's just been carried over and copied over into other drives. And so everything is not as pretty or fun as it sounds. But regardless of that, this one went really, really well. And so we're going to go ahead and go through the benchmarks real quick. This isn't going to be a long video, because this isn't going to take a whole lot of time. This is about probably what you would expect it to be. But just for those of you who are curious, what the combination of a Ryzen 5 5600G with an RTX 2070 or some other mid-level card, you'd probably be able to get similar numbers out of a GTX 1080 or an RTX 3060. I know you're going to get lower numbers than you would out of a 3060 Ti, because I got about 10% less than I did with a 3060 Ti in it. But that's just because that card, that 3060 Ti, is a better card, and that's why it's in my editing rig now with a 5800X. But we'll take a look at some of these numbers real quick, and we're going to go ahead and start like we always do with Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Starts out really, really strong, even at 1440p high, over 100 frames per second, ranges up to 137 at 1080 low. We're not going to be using 1080 low. This looks really, really good. It is an older title. It's been pretty well optimized. It is a DX12 or a DirectX 12 title. It's been optimized, and it's still getting updates for for things like upscaling and resolution, enhancements and things like that. So this is a very, very active title. They're still giving updates for this title, and it still looks really good. So over 100 frames per second all the way up. Looks, no problems here. When we get into Borderlands 3, lately Borderlands 3 has been causing me some issues, and a variety of issues in a couple of different things. But this is a DX11 title. It runs better on DX11 than it does on DX12. Don't ask me why. But on any video card CPU combination I've had, I've always gotten a little bit better performance out of DX11 than 12. So that's the one I always use for testing. 68 frames per second at 1080 high, and then it jumps way up to almost 100 frames per second when I go to medium. I don't know. But you know what? I'm not going to complain either, because still, it looks pretty good. It's still a very playable game, and it's still a fun game. I wish they would come out with a Borderlands 4, though. I know there's Tiny Tina's out there, so I probably will get that. It's set in the same universe. So I'll probably get that to test soon to see what the differences between Borderlands 3 and that are. But hey, for the time being, still, we're looking pretty good here. Far Cry 6, this was a little bit surprising, because even though it's a newer title, it has had some pretty good optimizations. And it's not until you get to 1080 low that you break the 100 mark, the 100 frames per second, although everything is over 60 easily. So can't complain about that. Far Cry 6 looks pretty good, and it runs fairly well. It's just not as high a frame rate as I would have thought it would have been. Forza Horizon 5 does a little bit better in here. We break 100 a couple times. Everything is 80 or over. It does look good. Now, Forza Horizon 5 does take advantage of some things where it automatically puts in ray tracing when you're running, say, 1440 or 1080 Extreme. It also does put in some scaling and all. So it's a highly optimized title for GPUs. It's not a CPU-intensive title. It's a very GPU-intensive title. So to get this these kind of numbers with an RTX 2070, I was pretty pleased with it. I can't be upset. Not at all. So it starts down at 80 frames per second for 1440p high and goes all the way up to 110 for 1080p low. Again, we're not going to be running 1080p low. World War Z, this game usually is one of those that because it's a Vulkan title, it usually gets along well with everything. And I've seen it get really, really high frame rates, but this combination just kind of sat there and went, yeah, okay. So it ran from a little over 100 up to 1080p low, up to 170 frames per second or so. But we're probably going to stick in the high to medium on 1440. That's now when I have something worth playing on. 1080p, it's going to be high. Yeah, there's no issues with that. 140 something frames per second at 1080p high, very, very playable. So when I do play this on the road or when I'm taking it somewhere, I'm not going to have any issues running that. Horizon Zero Dawn, sometimes this is the great equalizer, sometimes this is the great confuser, sometimes this is the whatever. This time, the only thing confusing about this is why it did better than, say, Borderlands or some of these other titles. And of course, it looks great, but this is another one of those titles that runs on DX12, runs well, and not anything under 110 frames per second in any test I ran. Now, I do always run these at, say, Ultimate or Extreme or whatever. Like Borderlands 3, I'll run it on Badass or something just to see what those numbers are. But I'm only giving you guys the highs, medium, and lows here for 1440 and for 1080p. Assassin's Creed Valhalla. This, considering that other games like Borderlands 3 and some of those and Far Cry 6 didn't score as high, this surprised me that it got as high as it did. 100 frames per second, I can't complain. All the way up to 144 for 1080p low. It is a newer title. It's got some optimization in it. Does look very good, but I've seen some other combinations struggle with this. This didn't struggle at all. It looked really, really good, and very happy with the result here as well. Cyberpunk 2077, this game always gives everybody fits, but not in this case. It did stretch down, or did kind of bog down a little bit. I want to say bog down. I didn't notice any stuttering or anything like that when I ran it at 1440p high, but I only got 70 frames per second. Now, I did get much higher on other settings and resolutions, but for the most part, everything ran smooth and it looked good. And I'm not upset about this at all. I did not try it with ray tracing. I did not try it with any other kind of settings. It does take into account DLSS or FSR or whatever card you have, whether it's AMD or NVIDIA. It does automatically do those settings in there, and it usually tries to put it in balanced or something, depending on what your resolution and what your quality settings are. But hey, considering when this game first came out, it was a struggle at 1080p high to get 42 frames per second. With almost the same combination, I had a 3700X with that 2070, and I got 42 frames per second. To see something now where 1080p high is almost 100 frames per second, yeah, they've done some optimizing in this game, and it looks good for it too. My esports title, CSGO, DX9 title, yeah. When you get over 300 frames per second, what difference does it make, right? So this does look really good. I'm not very competitive. I'm not very good at it, but at least it looked very good. And when I went ahead and ran the benchmark, the workshop benchmark, I mean, these were the numbers we were getting. A little bit surprised to see such a big gap, a 70 frame gap in between 1080p and 1440. But I'm not upset with it. Like I said, anything over 300 frames per second, are you really going to be able to tell that much? Not unless you've got a monitor that's a 360 monitor, or I think now somebody's got a monitor that goes up to 520 frames per second. that's just insane. No monitor I have in the house, no monitor I'm even looking at is like that. So, you know, like I said, I'm not very good at this anyway. So it doesn't matter if I'm getting 80 frames per second or 300 frames per second. I'm still not going to play any better. So that's kind of a look at it. I just wanted to kind of go through because some people had asked, and I said, sure, I'll go ahead and benchmark it. I'll go ahead and let you guys know how it came out, and it was really... and I know I'm cursing myself because this was one of the easier builds. It was one of the easier things benchmarking. I didn't have any kind of struggles with anything being compatible or anything hanging up, or I had no... I'm looking for wood to knock on. I didn't have any blue screens of death. I didn't have any issues. This thing just went together really, really well and really, really easily. Not at all like the struggle I'm going through with that thing over there right now that anyway, that might or might not be a whole different video. I don't know. But as far as Danny Double D is concerned now, yeah, it's doing very, very well. And I've had a chance to go out and take it with me on the road and test it out and set up some breeze. It gets a little bit of attention because of that Caribbean blue. Gets a little bit of attention because of the way it looks, and I'm pretty happy with the performance, so I can't be upset. I'm very, very glad I did it that way. Not that I didn't like the other Cooler Master case. I believe it was an Elite 110, but this really, really did the trick. Am I ready to go ahead and put that GPU vertically and put the glass panel on it? No, because I think I'm still going to want the option of just throwing it in the back of my car, or not the back of my car, putting it in the front seat of my car and driving, 2 hours or over to a friend's house or something like that and be able to set up. I don't think it being a mobile type computer that it needs a glass side panel. Not just if it was going to sit somewhere for any length of time, maybe, but nah. So that's all I got. I just wanted to show you guys what was going on. I wanted to show you guys what the result was of all this setup. And believe me, I mean, I wasn't expecting it to be that easy, but it did turn out that way. Also did install Windows 11. That's a whole nother video because not only did I do it on here, but I did it on the editing rig too. So I don't hate it. There's some things, some glitches, some little bugs, and some that I wished I would have taken shots of or screenshots of. But we'll come to that in a couple videos. But for the time being, very happy with this. Very happy with what I did. Don't forget, if you got anything out of it, like, subscribe, do all those YouTube things and all those social media things. Don't forget to hit me up on the other stuff. And I'm only going to ask you one other thing, and that's just be nice to each other. Be kind to each other. Something totally unexpected happened to me this morning where I'm sitting there waiting for a bus, and obviously it's the law. You have to stop for a bus. But I didn't even think about it. There was an intersection between the bus and myself, and my natural reaction was to park just a little bit short of that or stop just a little bit short of that intersection. And when he got done loading the kids, he was actually making a left turn right in front of me. I was already stopped, so hey, it didn't hurt me. Some of the people behind me might have gotten a little irritated, but you know what? It's okay. Just those little things. It doesn't take much. Just a little thing. Smile, wave, hold the door open, something. You have no idea what kind of good or what kind of thing it can do to change somebody's day, Be good out there, okay? Take care of each other. Till the next time, folks, that's all I got. I will be messing something else up. Not all of them are going to go as smooth as this. I know I'll be messing something else up. So until I do, I'll see you later.